Welcome to The Mountain in Us, a podcast where the journey gets its voice. I am Taran Singh, your host. Here we greet the thrills, jolts, ascents, and descents of our uncharted adventures. Hey everybody, today my guest is Diana Nguyen. Diana has supported my journey as a poet. She wrote a blurb for my back cover for the book. Diana is a creative force that works on multiple domains. You will hear a lot about that in the conversation we are going to have today. It is such a pleasure to have you of the Mountain in Us podcast, where today we'll converse about your journeys and endeavors and the propelling glue that you are so good at creating. So, Diana, welcome, and it's glad to have you here.
Oh, I'm very honored to be one of your first guests. So thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and just be part of your journey as well.
Thank you, thank you. And talking about journey, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself, your heritage, your upbringing, especially,
Yeah.
and the influence your mom had? I know she was one of the strong women in your life in shaping your armors and your beats. Can you share that with our audience?
Absolutely. So I'm Vietnamese. I was born in Los Angeles, California, immigrant family. My mom was a single mom. I was raised by a lot of women. My aunts and uncles, my grandmother had 14 kids. So, and she became a single mother to 14 kids because my grandfather passed away before I was born. And so, just seeing the strength and the resilience, starting with my grandmother and then my mom when she became a single mom, and then, of course, observing like all my aunts in my life too, that was part of making me who I am today. So, coming from an immigrant family, raised by a single mother, I lived and grew up in Seattle, Washington for over 30 years. I started my career as a accountant. You should call I guess you can call it. I started off after graduating college. I had a marketing and accounting degree, and I went straight into working at Deloitte, which was one of the big four firms, and then spent like 15 plus years of my life in accounting consulting before I made that big jump into the fashion world. So from finance to fashion, which then created my company, Madison Saville.
You talked about your grandmother, 14 kids. Can you take us back to a moment that you have cherished with her over the period of time? Can you share a memory?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My grandmother, oh my gosh, I miss her so much. We had a special bond because at that time, right, I was the kid that didn't really have a dad, right? He wasn't really a part of my life. And so when they say it takes a village, it really takes a village, right? I was very grateful for my grandmother, my aunts and uncles, all watching me and being there, when my mom had to work. And I'll tell the story later because it comes full circle because back then she worked at a factory, like a sewing factory as well. And now I'm in fashion. So I'll circle back to that story later. But I have a lot of fond memories with my grandmother because I was the one that, like, I wouldn't say needed the most love, but the attention, right? Because my biological father wasn't really there. And so everybody stepped in, and I was really blessed and grateful that I never felt a missing hole, right, in my heart with like a lack of love. There was never a lack of love. So I was very blessed and grateful for that. So my grandmother, the fondest memory, back to your question, is like when everybody was at work, all my aunts, uncles, including my mother, my grandmother watched me and she would cook for the whole family, right? While they're at work. So then when everybody gets off work, they come home and have this great meal. And so I would keep her company in the kitchen and we would just dance together in the kitchen. And that is one of my fondest memories about my grandmother. Hmm.
Awesome. I didn't know that it's like the
Yeah, I
grooving
love
grand,
dancing.
grooving grandmother. I've been, my son has been teaching me some dance moves, so it's been
Oh,
interesting.
really?
And I'm a pathetic dancer, and he's a great dancer. So no,
The great thing is that you participate, because that's what they're going to remember is that
yeah,
moment with you.
no, and that's And the life is itself is a big dance, right? And we are all in here together
Yes,
to
yes.
to put our moves to legacy and to work. My other thing that I want to just pick a little bit more as the story comes full circle, you're able to do so much, so many adventures, not just that adventure that are in the same areas. There you have a podcast, you have a fashion brand, you have a tech job, and there's so many other things I might not be even aware that you do on a daily basis. What I want to understand is a little bit what kind of connections that you built around you. I know you grew up in a big family, and how these connections are your glue and powerhouse, which I feel that comes radiating from you, right? When you're talking, what does it take to build these kind of connections, and how do you do it day in day out, and with this beaming energy that you have?
Thank you. It does take a lot of work. I'll tell you, let's see, I don't want to say I'm a 50-50 introvert extrovert, right? I think I'm more like maybe a 60-40, 70-30. I'm a little bit more extrovert than introvert, but I do love my alone time to recharge. So, but when you put me out there, it's a very natural thing for me. And one of the things I do love in life is connection, is connecting with people and building actually genuine, authentic relationships. It's relationship building for me comes very naturally because I come with the mindset that I'm not going to force things, right? When you meet people, you go out and network or any events or parties, there are people that you just hit it off like this right away. And those are the things that you lean into. And then there are people that are just not for you and you're not for them. And so you don't force that to happen, right? And so part of it is just kind of going with your feeling, your gut, your intuition of like there are people that are meant to be in your life and there are people that are not meant to be in your life. So don't force that. And for me, building community, so I lived in Seattle for over 30 years. So most of my adult life has been there, and I have a huge network there. And I have my immediate family, my mother, my sister, my dad there, but my aunts and uncles and cousins are here. So when my husband and I moved down to LA in 2019. That was right before COVID hit. And so, as you know, like you're not meeting anybody in COVID, right? Nobody wants to meet you or talk to you or anything. So, in a big city, when you move to a new place as an adult, it is very hard to meet new people and it's very hard to make new friends, right? But for me, I was determined that, moving here is for a reason, right? For Madison Saville, it's a fashion brand and moving to a place such as LA where fashion and creativity is at its core, right? You have Hollywood, you have fashion brands, you have all kinds of just creative talent around you that moving here is part of that is to cultivate that to meet people to expand your network and so for me it networking I always say is your net worth. Your network is your net worth. It's the people in your life, the people that you meet, right? And I make it a part of my job to go out there to network and meet people as much as possible. And it's like I'll give you this, it's like exercising, right? Going to the gym, you don't want to do it. You're like, you don't want to leave the house. You don't want to get dressed up and go and or get dressed to go to the gym, especially when it's cold out. And I think it's kind of similar with networking where it's like, okay, you're nice and comfy in your house. You don't want to get dressed up to go out and meet like all these people. But I'll tell you that most of the time I'll come back and have made some just great connections. And then over time, those certain people become really great friends. I was referencing it earlier as a child, it takes a village, but as an entrepreneur, I believe it takes a village as well. And it's the people, and you hear this too, it's the people you surround yourself with that will help you on your journey because it does get tough, right? It does like on your hike, right? We've talked about hiking as an analogy. It will get hard and the people that you want to go on the hike with, you want those people to be on the same page as you, believing in the same values and so your hike can be more enjoyable.
Yeah. And this, this podcast is probably having you here is testament to those connections. We didn't we didn't meet through connections. We met at a conference, and
Yep.
that's where we've just continued that spark together to
Yeah.
create a bond. And I know, people speak about network, but I think what I want to also highlight in your case, you keep people so close to the heart. It is not a men's network where you use and forget kind of a way. You've nourished so many things with your network without them asking for it. And we'll get to that in a minute. But I think what
Thank
I
you.
wanted to just congratulate you and the generosity that you showcase is the glory to the human we are, that we are not here for just one or the whole thing, but we are the village is the whole human race, and not and people around us and life around us. So thank you for doing that, and thank you for showing us that light.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I always come from a place of, along my journey, I've met so many great just people that have helped, right? Mentors, friends, that there are times when they've believed in me more than I believed in myself, right? And it's thinking through life of paying it forward and not expecting the other person to pay it back. That's the mindset of the more, the good karma that you put out there, the more you help people, it'll just come back to you. But it's paying it forward because so many people have helped you along your journey.
Yeah. And I think what also is interesting about you is, you have such a good way of saying it, but also I'm just to go totally different when you created your Madison Saville brand and
Yeah.
came up with the blazer idea. I'm just going to quote from what you have on the label there: arming you from the outside and building you from the inside.
Yep.
And I just thought that quote is so profound in itself. As women, we are who we are, and that is what, that the blizzard line that you're building is such a beautiful way of saying it. I want to know a lot more about the quote
Yeah.
and a lot more about the brand that you're building. So why don't you share how this quote came into it, and
Yeah.
how did your brand evolve into what it is today, and where you're heading in this space?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yes, I feel that our tagline, armoring you from the outside and building you up from the inside, really embodies what Madison Saville is about. And so Madison Saville is a lifestyle, inspirational brand of women's workwear, contemporary workwear. But what makes us unique is that we're a brand about being on the journey with the woman and helping her throughout her day and helping her to step into who she really is. And part of that is everything that we do, including the design of our blazers in particular, is to inspire and encourage her. And what I mean by that is that every blazer is lined with words of affirmation. And those words of affirmation are voted on by our community of what they feel like they need to hear and what they feel like they need to be armored with in this season of life. So our first collection has the words unstoppable and fierce lined on the inside. And I consider the blazer an armor because it's armoring the warriors of the world, right? You're armored with these words of affirmation that will remind you of your power, your uniqueness, to encourage you, to help inspire you throughout your days, right? Because warriors of this world, the women wear so many hats. And for us, yes, we are a blazer brand that does check the boxes of everything else, right? That you'll see out there is that we do have 5 pockets. Our blazers feel like sweaters because they're made to be comfortable and functional, right? The older you get, the more you value comfort, which at least I do, right? The older I get, the more I value comfort. But what we stand for is to be there with you, to have your back. And part of reason why I named it Madison Saville is that Saville's for Savile Row in London. It's known for its bespoke suiting, tailoring of men's suits. And I want to be and bring that for women, like known for our workwear, our blazers, tailored, high quality. But Madison means gift of God and warrior. And so that ties back again to the armor, right? Armoring the warriors of the world with our blazers, which we use as a vehicle for now, right? I have very, very grand vision of Madison Saville, but it's a vehicle to start changing the narrative for women, however that looks like, because what I've learned on this journey as an entrepreneur is that you have to be open to wherever, it leads you, because you may have like a vision or a goal. Like my company is going to be a blazer company, but maybe whatever you believe in, God, the universe, I believe in God, and God actually has plans for me or this company that, okay, maybe it's not going to be a blazer company. It's actually going to be this, but I can't see it yet. And you have to be open to what the outcome will be, because that's where the opportunities and what it's destined to be, right? If you're so tied to a certain outcome, and this is a lesson learned for me this year, if I was so tied to a certain outcome, you're going to get disappointed and you're going to start questioning yourself. Because if you think about all the successful companies out there, Amazon, Netflix, Shopify, all of that, they started with one idea. They thought their company was going to be this, right? Like Amazon, for example, there's like Jeff Bezos started with books. He's like, okay, I'm going to be an online book company. And look at where it is now. You never know. And that is one of my lessons learned on this journey is like, you know what? I never know. I don't know if I need to pivot. Businesses pivot all the time. Who knows where Madison Saville is going to be, 10 years from now? But what I do know is Madison Saville is about being on that journey with that woman to help her throughout the day, to help her see her power, to step into her power and find and discover who she really is.
You said it very well, armoring you from the outside and building you from the inside. That is not going to change no matter what product you have to pivot to. One thing caught my attention, as the follower of the Sikh faith, being a warrior is what we want, and a warrior is present in the moment, and they don't run away when faced with choices, right? And that's something that I want to also hear a little bit about the challenges, not in just Madison Saville, but in general. You must have taken a lot of detours to get to where you are. And what does Diana do when she is faced by challenge, and like you just talked about, where the outcomes didn't align to your expectations?
Yeah, they're definitely, oh my gosh, if people say that this journey is easy and smooth, then I think they're lying. Because I was very naive, right? When I left my corporate job, I left Microsoft, I think 8 years ago now, thinking that I was going to jump into Madison Saville full time, and that with all this time back, all this 40 plus hours a week back, I'm going to launch this thing in no time. And I was very naive because as an entrepreneur, you never know what's going to happen, right? And it didn't, I thought in my head it was going to take 6 months, and 6 months turned into a year to 2 years. And then COVID hit. So there are things that you cannot plan for, you cannot predict. And a lot of challenges, I compare it to being in a maze. You think that you found an exit, but it's another dead end. And it's a lot of those. It's like you have to keep going to find the exit. And you have a lot of, hope where you think, I think this is it. And then it becomes not. And so there have been a lot of challenges. There have been a lot of challenges because I went from a completely different industry, from finance to fashion. I had to learn a lot. And I always call it, an expensive MBA class. Is I'm learning on the job and I'm paying for it though too. But I think the thing to remember and note is that you're learning and you're growing, and that's what you call growing pains too. It's painful. I always say that for me, two things, like being in a relationship and being a business owner or an entrepreneur really brings out all of your skeletons, your doubts, your fears, your insecurities, things that are there, that is there. It's been buried, but being in those things bring them out because you have to deal with it. You have to heal from whatever that is in terms of like childhood traumas or hurts, that in order for you to rise above, to break through, to grow, to move forward, you actually have to heal from and resolve before you become the best version of yourself for whatever your journey you're on, whether that's a business or something else. I don't know, but those are the things that I have learned along the way with business and personally, that there are many versions of yourself in life. I'm on version 5.0 now. but it's all through a lot of challenges and a lot of pain. And it's not running away from that pain. It's to sit with it and to understand where is that pain coming from, what's the root cause of it. And to be honest, there are things that sometimes you don't even realize that that's where the pain is coming from because you've erased it from your memory or you've blocked it from your memory and you realize that it has affected you all these years, right? And that's part of healing. It's sitting with it, understanding it. And then the only way you can get through is to walk through the fire.
Yeah. You beautifully said it, not running away from it and acknowledging the pain is the beginning of, sometimes it's not the beginning, but also the fulfillment of healing, because as humans, we build some perception about ourselves, and sometimes to, just like a flower has to go through a bud to bloom, we also have to go and realize our potential before we bloom. And these growing pains are what makes us unique in our own ways. And
Yeah.
it's such remarkable you are able to put that uniqueness and bring a communities together. I'm going to switch to podcast and here just to understand, what motivated you to say, okay, I have all of these people that somehow are going to be looking at these stories that you have put on your podcast. What was the motivation to go out and create some of these things? And then secondly, when you're having these conversations, give us what goes on a day prior in your mind, the way you go about building those connections and those conversations. They're not topical conversations, these are conversations that matter to us in our daily struggles, but also matter to us in our ups and downs, or when we face a dead end, or when the maze becomes too crowded and too
Yeah.
hallucinating. So so please.
I say with the podcast, it started in COVID because, like I said, we were supposed to launch Madison Saville March 2020, and that's when the world basically shut down. So it again, that was the devastation, and I know not just for me, but a lot of people in so many ways of you have a goal, you have a plan, the universe and God and everything, like just totally different plan, right? And for me, I still wanted to help, to impact, to do something. And that's how the podcast came about is, well, the forefront of Madison Saville, number one thing about Madison Saville is to inspire and encourage. And if I can't produce my blazers and get them out there because the whole supply chain and everything was shut down, then I'll do a podcast. And it was slow to start because it's like, okay, well, who in my network can I, gather and who has a story to share? And the purpose behind the Madison Saville Inspired podcast is sharing stories from women in the community. And it's also experts, right? Psychologists, coaches, you name it. We have a variety of guests on our podcast, but the purpose is to help those that are listening feel that they're not alone, that they're not the only ones going through this, but then also to help them improve and take away something in life. And so that's how Madison Saville Inspired podcast started. And for me, I learn so much too, right? From the people that I have on my podcast. And I end up meeting so many people all over the world because I have guests from Germany and Australia. And, so now your community and your connection is not just here, it has expanded globally with people that you've just learned from and you're so interested in what they have to say. But what I always ask my guests is what message do you want the audience to take away in your episode? So when they're listening to it, what is the message that you want them to take away or learn from you? And to help guide, the conversation, because everybody has a unique thing that they either want to share with someone or the audience, or a unique teaching moments and lessons. So yeah.
And I was the guest once there, and it was my first time on the podcast. So I know how, even as a first time guest on a podcast, I felt overwhelmed with my own story, and just a corner poet, right, that does poetry on the side, just to be able to express the wider and the real challenges or the daily struggles of humans in a way, both our emotional but also society or community driven struggles. and also our achievements that go side by side, right? Because there is part of human glory is that we have all have unique footprints and imprints, but also sometimes we face our own unique challenges. One question that comes to my mind on the podcast side, and I'll for my audience, also put the link
Yeah.
so that you guys can check out, is something, especially from a self-discovery and reflection perspective, and when you're meeting people from across the globe,
Mhm.
are there suggestions for me and anybody else who's going to probably start a podcast in the future?
Oh, sure. I would say focus on being interested in the person and what they have to say and not be interesting yourself. I do that with networking too, because when you're interested in the what the person has to say, you're leaning in, right? And then the conversation is actually more natural and it's more authentic and it's genuine. But then because you're not paying attention to what that person's saying, if you're just trying to focus on yourself and of like, do I look okay? Or like, if you're already thinking about the next question and you just stop paying attention to what they're saying, I'm not saying that I'm perfect with that. It took some time for me to get to a place of going, okay, I have an outline of like what I want to ask them because I really am interested in getting these. Because part of being a podcast host is helping to guide your guests too, like keep them moving forward because you can go off into different tangents all the time, right? And so it's okay, but it's like the art of pulling them back. And I'm like, okay. So, like, what about this? So, having questions like you do to guide the conversation, but also multitasking, being interested in what they're saying. Because it's the same thing with networking while you're talking to someone and they're telling you about themselves and you're already like thinking about something else and you completely stop listening to them. So I would say that would be one thing that for me it took some time to learn and I'm still trying to perfect that.
No, thank you for that. And I hope I can stay true to that and learn a lot more from not just from your podcast, but also, having you here has helped me a lot in just leaning in and hearing your story. And I want to get full circle to the story that you just
Yeah.
gave us a hint in the beginning about your mother. I don't want to miss
Yeah.
that, that she worked in a
Mhm.
factory. So that would be great.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, thank you for that reminder. So, full circle, like I said, I was in corporate finance for 15 plus years and being in an Asian family, being raised in an Asian family, your parents are always like, are you a doctor? Or like they want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer, and everything else is not a job. So, so I was kind of forced, I guess, into being in accounting and finance. And so I did that for over 15 years. I became good at it because of my experience, right? But there is a calling in me that just kept getting bigger and bigger to do something more. Like you are meant to do something more to create more impact, to inspire and touch more people's lives than where you are right now. And so that calling got bigger and bigger, and it led to Madison Saville. And of course, you can only imagine when I told my parents and my family that I'm going to quit this amazing job with amazing benefits to go be an entrepreneur and spend all my money on a very capital intensive company and not know where this is going to go. They were panicking and worried and like, what are you doing? And maybe a year or two into it, my mom actually admitted to me that so I'm the oldest of three girls. And she's like, secretly, I always wanted one of you to be in fashion, but I didn't want to say it because, I don't want to lead you down the wrong path. And because all parents, like Asian parents at least, want you to be a doctor, a lawyer, engineer. And so she shared that with me. And then she actually gave me her fabric shears that she used when she worked in the factories when she came to America. So now I have her fabric shears as I use them as for my own company that I created here to create opportunities, to take advantage of the opportunities given and to create opportunities for others. But it started with, an immigrant mother working in a factory with her fabric shears. And now her daughter has, many years later, has created her company and using her fabric shears.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I feel a moment of awe inside me. Those shares are, they are pieces of diamonds, and those dreams are going to go big. And whatever
Yeah.
the outcome is,
Whatever the outcome is.
the outcome. But just to have your mother nourished, not just in your womb, but in your dreams and in your aspirations. What a treat, Diana. You're a lucky woman, a
Thank
lucky
you.
child, right? And we will come back to that. I'm going to have you talk more about those fabric shares in a broader context on another episode. But I just want to say it's what a wonderful pleasure to talk to you today. And I thought I always knew a lot about you, but I have just even scratched the surface here. And I've known you for more than a decade now. I think almost a decade now, right? And this is such a pleasure to have you here and on the mountain in us, where journeys gets their voice. Any last word for our audience?
I just want to say thank you to you for having me here on your podcast. It was a lot of fun, just to talk and like just share, right? And then also my last words to those out there listening is it's never too late. It's never too late to really dig in and discover, what your passions are and to lean into that. You hear so many people, success stories of people not even creating their companies until their mid 40s, until their 50s, or even well into their 60s, and they've become legacy brands that we know of today, right? And so just know that it's never too late.
Awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for joining us on the Conversation Trails of the Mountain in Us podcast. Each episode here is crafted with love, adventure, and reflection. We hope you have enjoyed this one and we welcome your thoughts on it. And if you want to be on the show, feel free to reach out.